Following is a Ham Radio Productions podcast. Okay, and we are back. Hope you enjoyed change up of theme music there. Um, Trying to go with something a little bit different for this episode. I don't know why, I just had the feeling, but today's episode, as you can probably guess about the title, is going to be about Nancy Wheeler. Why Nancy Wheeler? Well, I wanted to do some episodes about characters, but I didn't really know where to start with that. So last week I did trivia on my Instagram account, and I usually like to present prizes to whoever wins trivia. Some of them, are probably not the best prizes, but some are. And I thought, well, since I have the podcast now, I thought I'd present an episode on whatever topic that the winner chose. And I want to say real quickly, too, congratulations to at 11_smiles on Instagram. Big supporter of my account. And they won the trivia. And they chose for a podcast episode for me to talk about any character that I wanted to choose, to talk about their character development, how they've progressed over the course of the 3 seasons of Stranger Things so far. And there were a lot of characters I could have chosen, like a lot. I think, one of the more obvious ones that have progressed, would be 11. Which is true. But, I wanted to go a different route with a character that maybe doesn't get as much attention. So I sat back and I thought, who have I really seen a change in over the course of seasons 1, 2, and 3, and who I think will have a dramatic change and leap forward in season 4. And it just came to mind. Nancy. There's no doubt. Nancy Wheeler, you win the MIC award, the Most Improved Character award. So congratulations to you, ma'am. So, let's get into why I chose Nancy. Now, this episode is going to be divided into 3 segments. Really 4, because I'm going to talk about Nancy in season 1, Nancy in season 2, and Nancy in season 3, and my expectations of Nancy in season 4. So that's how it's going to go for this episode. So without further ado, Nancy Wheeler, Most Improved Character. So in season 1, Nancy is just, your typical teenager, 1980s teenager. I think she was like sophomore or junior in season 1. Yeah, I think she was a junior. Or sophomore, excuse me. Yeah. But, she's just your quintessential teenager who lived in the cul-de-sac, the 1980s. And, had her friends, her best friend Barb, dressed like a normal teenager. Um, Studied and had an interest in boys. Um, but what I really like though in season 1 is that they immediately tell us in episode 1 that you know yeah, even though Nancy is trying to uh, get Steve Harrington to notice her and trying to uh, um, get together with Steve Harrington, that they tell us, hey, Nancy wasn't, just like a few years ago, was playing D&D with her little brother and his nerdy friends, and I think that was great because, and I'll probably get to this in an episode in a few weeks that I'm really excited about, but it just Nancy's storyline kind of does, or at least in season 1, does kind of present the realities of growing up. And people do change. I mean, I remember like when I was 12, I mean, I was into Hannah Montana and the Disney Channel and kids stuff. I mean, me and my friends still when we would sleep over, when we would play Barbie dolls sometimes, you know. Um but then it was like maybe 2 or 3 years later when we were in high school, we moved on, Some of my friends started dating. Some, you know, especially when they got vehicles to drive. We got jobs. We joined clubs at school. We played sports. We had different interests, and then we started watching, more mature shows like Vampire Diaries and Pretty Little Liars, and a lot of stuff on the CW like One Tree Hill and all that good stuff. But I mean, we still watch Hannah Montana every once in a while. I'm not gonna lie about that. But now it's like, I mean, I'm out of college. I'm like, we're all adults, and look, I got a lot of friends that are getting married and having children. You know, and I'm stuck here watching Stranger Things. I'm just kidding. Which we all like too. We like Stranger Things, but I digress. But it's life. But with Nancy, I think Nancy, it wasn't just about in season 1 transitioning, just growing up. I think she wanted to kind of be something that she wasn't. Steve in season 1, he was popular. I think Nancy, she wanted to be popular. So what do you do if you want to be popular? You try to date a popular guy or a popular gal. But in season 1, there are times like earlier on in that season that I did not like Nancy because I'm like, what are you doing? This guy Stevie's a jerk. His friends are jerks. He's only got one thing on his mind, and it's not helping you study. It's not really even being a boyfriend. It's like he wants sex. I mean, that's what he wanted. And so yeah, the first half I didn't really care for Nancy until everything happened, with Will, and still, I mean, she was like, I can't go and do what I want to do because some little boy who just happens to be my little brother's best friend is, gone missing. And, I thought it was, very selfish of her. She had a lot of bad qualities in season 1. But I didn't like how in the latter half of season 1, especially, and it all happened because of Barb. I think Nancy really did kind of maybe mature, uh, because she realized, okay, well, it's coming into my world now, and it's affecting me, and I did a stupid thing by not listening to Barbara. And, don't know where Barb is. She's probably dead. I think she really started to take Mike and his friends and all of it seriously. And she did, kind of grow up. And I think, too, that when Jonathan kind of really came into her life and made her realize, it's not all about Nancy. The world does not revolve around Nancy. There's a world outside of Maple Street. And it's tough out there. It's hard. And I think that's one of the main reasons that I like Jonathan being with Nancy, and I hope they are together still in season 4, because he brings out the best in her. I think he's good, to kind of, keep her in check, keep her down on, on earth. So yeah, she did make an improvement in season 1, granted at the end, when she learned what happened to Barb. And I think it really opened her eyes that if I hadn't done what I did and I just listened to her, then maybe Barbara would still be alive. So, and I hated that Barbara essentially had to be sacrificed for Nancy to realize that. But sometimes it does take a mountain to get a hold of us. And I think that's what happened to Nancy in that moment of season 1. And also, when Nancy herself, she's probably scared to death when she made it into the Upside Down. That Demogorgon almost killed her too. But so that's it for segment 1. And segment 2, we'll be talking about Nancy's season 2, so stay tuned. Okay, so we are back with segment 2 of Nancy Wheeler Most Improved Character. And so in season 2, Nancy really does take a big leap, because now we know that Barb is dead. And so she does spend really all this season, I think, finding out who Nancy is. Because, she knows what happened to Barbara. But her parents don't, and really the community doesn't. And she kind of struggles with, okay, well, how do I tell them? Because they're not, they can't tell like fully what happened, with the Upside Down and everything. So she's kind of stuck in this conundrum of, okay, do I tell them the truth or do I lie to them? Because either way, it's going to be bad, And her parents, they still think, early in season 2 that Barbara's still alive, and they've gotten Murray Ballman to investigate. Into her disappearance. But look, we know the truth. She's not alive. She's dead. And I think this is, one of the reasons I think that Nancy kind of felt kind of like in between a rock and a hard place, especially with her relationship with Steve, was like, she's finding out who she is, I think, in season 2. And I think she found out, I'm not Steve Harrington's girlfriend. I'm not cut out to be his girlfriend. She now knows there's stuff going on. And she knows the truth about what happened to Barbara. And Nancy is just, I think, a naturally inquisitive person. Like, she just can't help it. And I think she's found something to occupy her time with that's bigger than herself. Whereas in season 1, it was all about Nancy. But now it's, she knows that bad things are going on, bad things are happening in Hawkins, and she wants to do something about that. And I think she feels as though, Steve doesn't really take it, take it seriously at first. And I think the best thing that ever happened to both Nancy Wheeler and Steve Harrington was them breaking up. Because I don't really know if where either of them would be in the series today had they not. Because it helped Steve grow up too. This is not a Steve Harrington episode, but I mean, look, it did help Steve grow up. After they broke up, he had nowhere else to go and ran into Dustin, took him on an adventure, and the rest is, they say, is history. But I think in this season, Nancy realizes, okay, I've got a purpose now in my life, and it's not just to, go and find the right guy, who I think is the right guy, and, be all in love. I've got a purpose now, and I want to fulfill that purpose. And then, her and Jonathan get together, and I think in this season, I think that was really great. I mean, I really like that because, again, I think Jonathan is a much better boyfriend for Nancy than Steve. Now the only thing I didn't really like about Nancy was, and I know she was drunk, but yeah, I'm like, it was pretty harsh, to Steve. Like, why don't you just break up with him? I think that's something she had wanted to do. Before it happened, I think at that moment, the straw just kind of broke the camel's back. In that moment, I don't think she could live with the secrecy anymore of what happened to Barb. And I think at that moment she knew, she was going to go up with Jonathan to see Murray Bauman and try to figure this mystery out. So yeah, but Nancy really, really took a huge step forward in season 2 in terms of her character development and her style. I mean, I really like, she's, growing up, got the style going. And 2, I liked how in season 2, how in season 1 they said that she used to play D&D with Mike in the party. Well, now she's come back with them, and she probably didn't even realize that would be the case. But I really like seeing that because she's coming back to who she really is. Deep down, I think she's a nerd. She liked to study. I mean, she liked to study, and she obviously liked D&D at one point, and she's just very inquisitive, and we'll definitely see that in season 3, which will be our third segment, and so stay tuned. Okay, so we're back with our third segment, talking about Nancy Wheeler. And in season 3, there's no doubt that, Nancy certainly seemed grown up. She's got a job now, supposedly doing what she likes, but she's not really actually doing any journalism. She's really like the coffee girl. But yeah, I mean, she's got a new look going on. Summer, and got a job, and there's a bigger mystery out there. So of course she's gonna get on that. But I actually think, in terms of her maturity, Nancy kind of does take a step back in this season, mostly because, I mean, I understand that what the guys at the paper did to her was wrong, but at the same time, her actions did cost Jonathan his job too. She didn't really think a whole lot in season 3 about, you know, her actions affecting other people. Um, but I didn't like how, even though she did get fired, I mean, she did stand up for herself. I did like that. Um, and she went out and continued to pursue the story. And at the end of the season, the whole state of Indiana, and I think the world, or the United States and the world, probably um, found out really what was going on in Hawkins. Or at least that there was some bad stuff happening at the lab, and that was all due to Nancy's investigative journalism. And so I did like her character in season 3, the way she did become selfless in terms of looking out for the kids and stuff. And how much she added to season 3 just by being Nancy and just taking a risk, which sometimes you got to do. But I will say this: her and Jonathan had that argument. I mean, they were both right to some extent. He was right about how she didn't understand, um, what life was like outside the cul-de-sac, right? And that's something he said to Nancy. He said it to her like seasons 1 and 2. He didn't he did not. He lived out in the middle of nowhere. He didn't live on Maple Street. He didn't come from a rich family. His dad wasn't around. Even though Ted is Ted Wheeler, but at least he's around. You know, um. So no, she didn't understand that Jonathan's job meant more to him than just, uh, you know, getting to do something that he loved. He had no other choice than to have a job. He needed, his family needed extra money. But on the same hand, she was right too, because, he was always, back there um in the dark room. He didn't really, always see what happened, to her every day. And yeah, it was humiliating for her. Um, I mean, those guys were never going to let her be a journalist. Um, that's not why she was hired. Um, and that I thought it was really unfortunate, but she did handle it to the best of her abilities. Because uh, you know, as long as she could, she held out. Um, for as long as she could in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I really like Nancy in season 3. You know, her, her efforts, her being able to, shoot a gun. I mean, did help save Eleven's life. In the cabin. It did help save everybody else's life when she tried to shoot Billy when he was coming straight for him, and hadn't been for Steve showing up at the last minute. Billy would have crashed into them and killed them. You know, so I think that's why Nancy over the course of 3 seasons has definitely improved a lot. As most improved character. She's gone from trying to be something to not that she's not, to finding out who she is, and she's found out who she is, and that's why I'm really excited to see where Nancy goes from here. I'm excited to see her in season 4. Mostly because we've gotten a lot of set pics of Nancy and Robin, and I think that's going to be a really good team this season. I'm really excited to see what those two can do together, because Robin's good at investigating as well, and she's good at figuring stuff out. So I'm really excited about see those two team up. I think it's going to be really awesome. But I'm also really interested to see Nancy without Jonathan, because like I mentioned earlier, I think one of the big reasons that Nancy matured a lot was because Jonathan was there. Well, now he's not. So now Nancy's going to have to, I think, figure things out on her own a little bit more, and being very interested to see how Nancy is able, like, what's she up to in season 4? Is she just an amateur sleuth journalist, or is she actually working for a paper? Like, has she now become the only journalist for the Hawkins Post because they're all dead? uh, you know, so yeah, it gets me really excited to see her in season 4. I think this is a character that's going to continue to improve and progress and mature as the series goes on. And one quick thing that I have seen out there is that many have speculated that Nancy will be the major character that dies. Well, I don't know. She's like all the other major characters. She's had a brush with death a time or two. But I don't think that any major character, or at least not in season 4, is going to die. I think if they do, it will be in season 5, which I think is supposed to be the last season of Stranger Things. But I will say this: if they do decide to kill Nancy off, or any of the other major cast members, it better not be a fake death. It better be a real death, because I mean, there's a very good cliffhangers, but it's like you've done that like 3 times or 2 times, and eventually it'll start getting old real fast. But I don't think they'll kill her off. I mean, I don't really know what to expect, because we haven't really gotten much from Stranger Things. Not a lot of set photos, but yeah. So that's gonna do it on this episode of Nancy Wheeler, and so please join us next week for another episode of Through the Ham Radio Podcast. Over and out.